On September 20, 2022, the BP-Husky Toledo refinery suffered a fatal naphtha release and flash fire. What makes this case so important is that it was not one dramatic single failure. It was a cascade. A series of process upsets, communication gaps, overloaded operators, and weak safeguards stacked on top of each other until 2 workers were killed. This is the anatomy of escalation in a refinery system. The scale of this incident was brutal on every level. 2 men, brothers Ben and Max Morrissey, lost their lives. 4 additional operations personnel were treated for chemical exposure. More than 23,000 pounds of flammable liquid naphtha were released to the ground in just minutes, and total damage was estimated at about $597 million. This became BP's deadliest refinery incident since the 2005 Texas City disaster. Under normal conditions, this system was supposed to be boring in the best possible way. Crude 1 feeds the overhead accumulator, the coker gas plant handles its portion, and the fuel gas mixed drum is meant to contain dry fuel gas with only minor incidental droplets. It is not supposed to become a liquid storage vessel. That design intent matters, because once liquid gets into a gas-only system, every downstream furnace and boiler becomes part of the hazard. The path toward disaster really began with instability in the Crude 1 tower. Earlier problems had already left operations in an abnormal state, and the night shift inherited a unit that was not truly stable. At the same time, critical operating context was not fully communicated during handover. So the incoming operators were trying to manage rising liquid levels and shifting process conditions without the full picture. That is a rotten setup for good decision-making. Here is where the cascade becomes physical. To relieve high level in the Crude 1 overhead accumulator drum, a valve was opened to send naphtha toward the coker gas plant. But with the coker gas plant in a vulnerable configuration, that action created a direct pathway for liquid naphtha to move where only vapor service was expected. What looked like a local corrective move upstream became the start of a refinery-wide overflow problem downstream. About 6:09 p.m., the fuel gas mixed drum was no longer acting like a gas separator. It was rapidly filling with liquid naphtha. That completely defeated its design purpose. A gas mixed drum can tolerate trace moisture. It cannot safely handle thousands of pounds of flammable liquid pouring into a fuel gas system. Once that happened, the threat changed from a process upset to an immediate ignition hazard involving furnaces and boilers across the unit. Now pile that on top of an alarm flood. The board operators were not dealing with a clean, manageable panel. They were being hammered by alarms for nearly 12 hours. More than 3,700 alarms were recorded that day. That is not more awareness. That is cognitive overload. When alarms come faster than a human can interpret and prioritize them, the control room stops being a decision center and starts becoming a noise machine. The system itself started broadcasting distress signals. Furnaces and boilers began smoking because liquid naphtha was reaching equipment that should have been burning clean fuel gas. The Crude 1 furnace showed black smoke first, then a boiler emitted green smoke, and the warning was unmistakable. Liquid was in the fuel gas system. By 6:27 p.m., the refinery coordinator called for shutdown actions. But by then, the excess liquid had already moved too far downstream. At this point, operators needed volume. They opened the drain to the flare knockout drum and the drain to the oily water sewer. But those paths were too slow to keep up with what was entering the mixed drum. Under intense pressure, they escalated to a far more dangerous workaround, removing the blind flange and releasing material directly to the ground. That was not a controlled process solution. It was an emergency improvisation inside a failing system. This slide captures one of the most dangerous things in process safety: the gap between what operators believe is happening and what is actually happening. The operators thought they might be dealing with water or amine water, and when the level indication dropped to 0, that looked like success. But it was false. Opening the bleed broke the differential pressure reading. The instrument said the drum was emptying, when in reality it was still full and still feeding the hazard. By the mid-6:30s, the situation had crossed into an uncontained release. Operators in SCBA gear were using water hoses to try to direct the draining liquid toward a sewer, still not fully recognizing the real chemical danger. The visible liquid was only part of the problem. The invisible problem was the vapor cloud forming above and around it. Once flammable naphtha is released hot and fast into open air, the cloud becomes the real killer, because it can drift until it finds ignition. At 6:46 p.m., that is exactly what happened. The vapor cloud reached a likely ignition source near the crude 1 furnace and flashed. This was not a pressure explosion in the Hollywood sense. It was a flash fire, which is fast, violent, and devastating enough all by itself. The key lesson here is that once you allow a flammable cloud to form in an operating refinery, you are no longer asking if there is an ignition source nearby. You are asking which one gets it first. The response after ignition was immediate and heroic. At 6:47 p.m., an outside operator was found on fire near the base of the crude 1 tower, and a co-worker used a nearby fire monitor to extinguish the flames. At 6:49 p.m., the trainee was moved to the blast-resistant north pod for first aid. Then, at 6:56 p.m., heat exposure caused a blocked-in pipe in a nearby rack to rupture, feeding even more fuel into the growing fire. Even after ignition, the original source had not yet been isolated. At 7:04 p.m., a board operator finally recognized that naphtha was still flowing from the crude 1 accumulator through the coker gas plant toward the mix drum. He manually closed the same control valve that had been opened earlier to relieve the initial upset. Meanwhile, emergency response teams had to physically approach the burning area and close the drain points one by one. That is a brutal way to recover control. There was also a serious secondary hazard developing around the naphtha hydrotreater preheat exchangers. Loss of containment and relief events created a volatile water and naphtha mixture in the containment area. This could easily have become another ignition and another cascade on top of the first one. The reason it did not is because outside operators got a large amount of water on it quickly and kept that secondary hazard from finding a flame front. This slide is the process safety autopsy. The expected defenses were layered: engineered overfill prevention, clear procedures and training for abnormal draining situations, and a safe shutdown when the unit became unmanageable. The actual safeguards were much weaker. Reliance on human intervention, improvised field actions, and continued pressure to keep things running. In other words, the system looked protected on paper, but under real upset conditions, the layers were full of holes. This is why blaming operator error is too shallow. The operators did not act maliciously, and they were not casually reckless. They were pushed into an impossible corner by poor handover, alarm overload, missing engineered safeguards, and bad process information. Human intervention became the last line of defense only after the real defenses had already failed. That is exactly why modern process safety says you do not design around perfect humans. You design around predictable human limits. The CSB broke this disaster into 5 root causes. First, safeguard failure. Too much reliance on people instead of engineered overfill prevention. Second, stop work authority failure. Operations were not brought to a safe state soon enough. Third, weak abnormal situation management. The refinery lacked solid ways to guide people through cascading upsets. Fourth, alarm flood. Operators were buried in noise. And fifth, failure to learn. Earlier warnings and prior incidents did not produce the changes they should have. The deepest indictment here is not just that Toledo failed. It is that history repeated itself. The parallels to Texas City are hard to ignore. Overflow, confusion, human workarounds, vapor release, ignition, and fatal consequences. Real process safety means assuming that during a severe upset, people can become overloaded, rushed, and wrong. So the job of engineering is not to hope humans save the day. The job is to build safeguards that protect people when the day goes bad.